Hello, and thank you for joining me today for a bonus interview with the Spring 2021 CTDO Magazine Spotlighted Executive. My name is Ann Parker, and I'm Senior Content Manager for ATD. I'm joined by Eileen MacDonald Cooke, Vice President of Enterprise Learning, Development, and Performance, LD&P for short, for CVS Health. Eileen was featured in the latest issue of CTDO Magazine, and I'm pleased to bring you some extra insights from her as we dig a little deeper into the themes of her cover piece called Meeting Needs Through L&D. You can find this article on td.org/CTDO. Hi, Eileen, and welcome.
Hello, Ann. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. Your CTDO feature article, published in April of this year, describes how the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services tapped CVS Health to assist with COVID-19 testing and vaccinations.
Yes.
In response, CVS Health took on the largest hiring drive in the company's history, bringing on thousands of full-time, part-time, and temporary workers. Mm-hmm. Because the company is hiring those individuals for targeted functions such as vaccinating people in long-term care facilities, your LD&P team had to temporarily pare down and shorten onboarding. Mm-hmm. So clearly much has changed across the U.S. Since you were interviewed for this article. So I'm curious to learn about the present state of CVS's recent rapid hiring drive and hear how your LD&P team has and continues to respond.
That's a great question. Isn't it nice that we can say, and things have changed, right? Things have evolved and moved on in so many ways, in the best of ways. So as people were hired first for testing, and then for vaccination in different forms in different places, you're right, we did have to focus what people were trained in to make them compliant and capable and, able to execute on that. Since then, because it was modularized, it was, we took parts of a bigger curriculum or programming and focused it. We've been able to go back and fill in gaps as needed. So the joy of being able to hire people that may have been out of work due to the COVID situation and things closing down has not diminished, in the sense that for those who do want to stay and those who are really engaged in the work that is now expanded into regular pharmacy work and vaccines continue, we were able to keep them and just, fill in those gaps as we need to. Now, we're always hiring. That never stops. But we were able to transition those who were willing and able and excited to stay into full-time roles as was needed.
That's great. And I think that, the themes of kind of agility and adaptability and all of that kind of quick moving pivots has been resounding this past, year and a half. So it sounds like you've been able to, that's kind of been part of what your team's been doing.
It is, or it has been, in the sense that everyone had to. If you were going to stay relevant and you're going to keep up, everyone, had to put on that, turn the hat that said, turn up the urgency, turn up the agility. We are in L&D, we fall prey to this wanting to build an opus. And then everyone goes through this opening night performance type of learning or training. And yay, that's not a bad thing, but it can't be the only way we operate. And this really turned up our attention on that modularized, targeted approach that gets people going, and then to fill in as needed after that. And, we have to thank the gods of technology and that systematic approach to unlocking our ability to do that.
Well, I'm glad to hear that. And as you said, it's not over, right? And
nope.
Good thing.
Yeah.
But so you talked a little bit about in the article, employee learning, obviously, and what it looked like in CVS Health at the time you were interviewed. Curious what it looks like now in July 2021. There's been lots of changes, looking at, virtual versus face-to-face, in-person. Are the majority of your programs still online? If so, will that trend toward virtual learning continue, or do you have any in-person programs that have been resurrected or will begin to be resurrected?
So there's The answer is the best approach to training aligns to the objective of that particular training program. And we had probably told ourselves, because it was the only way to do it. It was the only way to do it for so long, that to really develop someone and discuss and watch them and then let them practice, all the things that we do in order to instruct, to try, give feedback, coaching, and create capabilities in someone, was to do that in the same room, the same four walls. Well, we can do that now remotely because of technology. And we can do that for more people in a more targeted way using technology. So I'm going to say 80%, I think it's higher, but I'm going to say 80% of our training can meet those objectives really well and do it for more people in a more targeted manner than we did in the past more often. And the answer is more often, because when you brought everyone in, which was good, and they were great sessions and people loved it and they were energizing, and you'd go back, you couldn't bring them back next week. You couldn't take them out of workflow. So now you can do maybe a larger training virtually and then say next week, 5-minute refresh, 10-minute refresh. Next week after that, let's get together and have a 10-minute discussion on what you've tried. We can reach more people more often in a better way if we do so using the amazing technology that we now have access to. COVID, we knew that, right? That wasn't like an epiphany that happened because of the COVID situation, but the business, who was very, can be very tied to bringing people together and all the good stuff that happens there. We can still do that when it's necessary, but we got to get out of the way. We have to do this now. And they've seen that productivity, engagement, all the things that they thought they could only get from an in-person within the same walls kind of training event isn't necessarily the way. Yeah. So I'm happy to say that we are going to continue, and we're going to become even better at leveraging technology and helping people learn to do their jobs and be great at their jobs in a way that is actually the way people learn to do their jobs and get great at their jobs over and over and over again in smaller pieces versus that opus event that I talked about earlier.
Mm-hmm. That's great. I love hearing that so much of what your team does is targeted kind of, in the point of need. Obviously focus on the objective. I mean, all obviously best practice examples. Yep. So I think this applies to skills building too. So you've talked about how the LD&P function at CVS Health is largely focused on upskilling and reskilling employees. You mentioned in the article that a series of triggers in your LMS helps to roll out new skills as needed. So beyond skills training, how does your team identify which new capabilities are needed for particular roles? Given ongoing and rapid change, how does the function lead the company in not just skills training for existing jobs, but also building for future jobs?
Keeping people relevant, right? Yeah, that nudge. And it's not a big extraction of people, dip them in training, and then bring them back to execute, right? So change, thank goodness, it's evolution. Let's take change out. Let's just talk about the evolution of work, the evolution of how people are expected to perform or what great performance is. And it's usually not a surprise. It's something that's been discussed, something that we're pointing towards a strategy or an outcome or a business goal. And you look at that and you say, in order to get there are a couple of things we need to turn up in the way people are doing their job. That's how you keep relevant. It's not a stop the presses. We need to inoculate people with a new skill and then carry on. It's we're always heading in a direction. And in order to get there, what are the nuanced changes? Now, if it's a huge change, if a role is truly going to go from completely customer facing to they never see a customer and it's all digital, well, that's a different job. Right. So I think what people have to understand is that upskilling and reskilling means in the same job, in the same role, things evolve and things get turned up and some things get turned down in order to reach that particular business objective or result, so that it's a constant nudge and reminder. And it's the way people actually absorb information. I have a job to do. It's 90% the same as it was yesterday. But now, because we're heading into a different season, or there's a new system, whatever might be coming that's new, I need to turn this up or turn something down. And that's reskilling.
Yeah.
That's truly what reskilling is the reminder of what needs to be turned up, refreshed, and used more often than maybe it had before. Now, if it's a new role, right? So we're really changing the way people work. It is often, I, in learning and development, have to talk to business leaders and say, do you realize X% of the way they work is changing? Mm-hmm. And if you're really asking them to pivot that much, I think we need to look at this as a different role or a different version of that role.
Yeah. Kind of the evolution of it rather than some change event, right? Mm-hmm. Well, thanks, Eileen. One last question for you here. I think this is a big one, and one I hear you kind of touching on throughout our time together, really about how you are well aligned with the business, your LD&P team with CVS Health's business. And I think, unfortunately, this is a big shift compared to some talent development organizations who are more order takers, essentially. But I love this quote of yours from the article. Others wait for the business to come to them to be told what to do, but we've put ourselves so much into the minds of our business leaders that they know the downstream implications if they don't get LD&P involved early. How did you get to this point? So how did your function put itself in the minds of business leaders? What are some insights you could share for other folks who are listening, watching, who are seeking the same level of business synergy?
It's a constant drumbeat, and that drumbeat starts with the notes of the business and not the notes of L&D. And I'm trying to do a musical metaphor, and I'm going to stop right now. It means that when we meet with a leader, and it takes time. We don't start the conversation with, here's who we have to schedule, here's how many classes we're running. Here, we start with, we understand the objective is X, we have progressed X, we've gone this far in it. What do we need to get it further? And we're not talking about an L&D objective, we're talking about a business objective. So if you want the business to think of you as a business partner, a partner in driving the business, you have to talk business. You have to bring business. You think business first. I tell my team, and it's a quote from an HR book I read years ago, be a business junkie. Know more about, the business and what levers it pulls in order to drive towards the results that they've been tasked with. And then start your conversations there. And at first, business is like, I thought you were training. Why are we talking? We want to talk, how many classes? I'm like, yeah, we're going to get to that. Yep. But I want you to understand that our classes will only get us this far. What if we, whatever the business context is, you just like training. I want to say we're training our business leaders or our stakeholders, but we're training them to think differently about how we think, what we bring to bear, and the impact that we can have through an ongoing drumbeat of the experience they have with us.
Thank you so much for your time today, for sharing these additional insights. I encourage everyone who is watching and listening right now to check out Eileen's feature article. Again, www.td.org/CTDO. Thanks, Eileen.
Thank you. It was great. Thank you so much.